Our next guest, one of them will be also Minister for Higher Education. So he heard your remarks, so probably our moderator of the last debate of the Slovenia Business Bridge will address also some questions in that way. But the next round table will talk about synergizing humans and technology. With the benefits of AI, the industry will benefit and also the society needs to benefit. So I would like to invite Jaka Repanšek, the moderator of the next debate. Jaka is the founder of the Republis, president of Advertising Tribunal of Slovenia, and also co-chair of AmCham IP committee.
Hvala, Vida. Thank you, Vida. Okay, we're going to make this interesting because it's the last one and we're all hungry, right? We're going to keep to the time. Dear ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, dober dan, and welcome to our panel titled Synergizing Humans and Technology, the Power of AI for Future of Innovation and Business. It seems these days one cannot wake up in the morning and go to bed in the evening without hearing, reading, getting excited, and sometimes worried about the wonderful new world powered by artificial intelligence. It's everywhere. It's all around us. And it's also a hot topic in politics on the highest level. President Biden dedicated part of his recent speech at the UN General Assembly and noted that artificial intelligence must work for us and not the other way around. European Commission's President von der Leyen dedicated a large portion of her recent State of the Union address to the European Parliament, talking about European Digital Decade, and she put artificial intelligence in the core of her message. And so on and so forth. We can't even count the number of events these days that are dedicated to AI in one way or the other. It's the hot topic of global discussions on every possible level. But why? Perhaps because the future of AI is both exciting and uncertain. The potential benefits of AI are enormous, ranging from improved healthcare and education to increased efficiency and productivity across industries. However, concerns about the impact of AI on employment, privacy, and security remain. One possible future scenario is that AI will become the most important tool in everyday life, powering everything from smart homes and self-driving cars to personalized medicine and entertainment. But as the AI systems become more advanced, they may also become more autonomous, making decisions and taking actions without human inputs, and this could lead to new ethical and legal challenges. Ultimately, the future of AI will depend on how we choose to develop and deploy these technologies. To ensure that AI benefits society, it will be essential to prioritize ethical considerations and engage in robust public debate. And this is also the core of our discussion today. But before we move on, I had to do it. I did it last time. I could not ask a conversational generative AI chatbot to help me write a few lines of my introduction today. Those who were here remember at the last event, I asked one of those bots to write me a speech for the conference. So yesterday, I asked Google's Bard to help me out with today's event. So I kindly asked him, "Dear Bard, please help me out." And here's what Bart had to say. "I'm thrilled to be here with you today. We are here to celebrate the latest and greatest in artificial intelligence and to discuss how AI is changing our world to the better. AI is already having a profound impact on our lives. It is being used to develop new medical treatments, create self-driving cars, and revolutionize the way we do business. And we are only just beginning to scratch the surface of what AI is capable of." That's what Bart said. And Bart goes on and says, in the coming years, AI is poised to transform every aspect of our lives. It will help us to solve some of the world's most pressing problems, such as climate change and poverty. It will also create new opportunities for us to learn, grow, and create. But Bart says, to conclude, with great power comes great responsibility. It is important to make sure that the AI is developed and used in a responsible way, an ethical way. We need to ensure that AI benefits all of humanity and not just a select few. I am excited to see what the future holds for AI, and I'm honored, concludes Bart, to be here with you today to celebrate the progress that we have made so far. Thank you, dear Bart. And now I would kindly invite Mr. Martin Boimel, Senior Staff Engineer at Google, to tell us more about the exciting world of Bard and the future of AI. Martin, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the kind introduction. My name is Martin Boimel. I'm based in Google Zurich, and I work on Bard with a very talented team of other engineers there. If we look at the history of inventions, I mean, there have been certain milestones which we consider now crucial steps towards the digitalization and the day that we are today. If we look at how PCs transformed from computing from big room-like computing devices to devices that sat on our desks, or the internet that brought the vast human knowledge into our living rooms, or when we combined the computing power of these devices and the internet into devices that fit into our pockets and made information and communication available at any time and anywhere. And now it seems like we're at the cusp of a new revolution, the era of LMs and AI, and it might be the most profound of these yet. And in fact, many great thinkers and leaders believe in the immense transformative power of AI, and we already heard some thoughts on that. In fact, our CEO, Google CEO, Sundar Pichai, in his view, AI is more profound than any other technology past or present that we have worked on so far. Actually, I'm curious in the room, how many of you share this view? Is that like something that is broadly shared, or are you more cautious in terms of what the impact of AI is? Maybe show of hands. Well, there's, okay, a few, okay. So at Google, we've been working with AI and building AI into our products for close to 2 decades, from spam prediction in Gmail, over speech recognition in the Assistant, flood prediction in Google Search, or self-driving cars. This is something that's really core to our DNA. Yet at the same time, we're always approaching this in a very responsible and safe way. That's why we published, in 2018, we published our AI principles, deeply rooted in that belief that AI should benefit society and avoid harmful applications. And I want to note that these are not just words on paper, but this is really something that is deeply ingrained in our research and our internal processes and our daily product development. In the past, AI has often been kind of predictive, so taking an input and producing a label, like taking an email and saying whether it's spam or not, taking an image and saying, well, there's a cat or a dog or a screw or something on it. And now, in the past year or so, there's a new form of AI that has captured the world's imagination, and that's generative AI. And generative AI doesn't classify or predict. It really creates new original content, and that can be across text, images, but also code. We've heard yesterday that Python coders are missing, right? So that's an area where that can help, but also audio and video. We already heard from Bard. I want to quickly give you some examples of how we're evolving Bard as a creative and helpful collaborator. So we launched Bard in March this year. It's available now in over 40 languages in 200 countries. And we've seen our users use Bard to enhance their creativity, augment their imagination, use it to create original new content, break down informational queries into simpler ideas. We even had cases where somebody asked how to apologize to their girlfriend and help with that. But just this creative process is not enough to make AI truly useful. So starting this week, we're actually giving Bard access to additional services and apps, like, for example, Gmail, YouTube, Maps, and it enables journeys like asking Bard to help find information and summarize emails into a small, condensed summary, and then continuing that journey with other tools like Google Flights to find a flight to travel to a certain location. In this example, let's say you have an image of a castle that's not far from here, but you might want to ask yourself, well, what is this place? Where is it actually? How can I get there? And if I want to go there, where can I stay nearby? If you would do this in the, let's say, traditional sense, that would require juggling between different apps and services, copy and pasting information, probably would take you 10 to 20 minutes to find out that information. But Bard, with the access to multiple tools, can orchestrate this journey for you. If you notice, I'm never giving the name of the place. I'm only inputting the image and asking, where is this, and can you help me find hotels nearby? And Bard is in the background orchestrating, understanding what's in the image, finding that location, and then querying Google Hotels to find places that are nearby that place and where to stay. Another very useful tool, obviously, is Google Search. If you have an informational question, we want to go back and not only create new content, as LLMs often have that challenge that they make things up, or they hallucinate, as we say. So for informational queries, it's important that those are grounded in facts, and that's why we gave Bard access to Google Search. For every query, it queries search and uses the results from search to ground the response. And again, starting this week, we enabled a new functionality that we call double check. So a user can ask Bard to spend even more time analyzing the results and checking sentence by sentence if it finds more information on the web to identify whether this information, if the sentence has other sources that corroborate that sentence, or whether there are things that contradict that sentence, and Bard will admit that it made a mistake there. So I showed you a couple of examples how it's not only humans can collaborate with AI like Bard, but also how the AI can collaborate with tools, your favorite apps and services that you anyway use in your daily lives. And similarly to how apps really made smartphones into these indispensable tools that we have today, I think in the future we will see that AI will be supported by tools and integrations like the ones that we're building here, and make them really truly useful tools. I want to end with a small outlook. I think it's clear that the pace of innovation right now in AI is truly staggering. I believe what we're going to see over the next few months and years, on the one hand, on the modeling side, we're going to see larger, more capable models, but also smaller, more specialized models that are efficient to run. And if you have domain-specific data, that's a route that I think will be very interesting to take. We've already seen a Cambrian explosion of applications, and I think that will just continue to permeate our daily lives. Anywhere, especially where you have an application of text in, text out, that's going to be significantly improved with AI or is bound for disruption. And then it remains really critical that we develop and deploy this technology in a responsible way. And that's not something that one organization can do alone. It needs to be a dialogue between all the stakeholders, including the public and in forums like this. And then with all of that, I think the opportunity that AI presents today is enormous. And we at Google, we're taking a bold but responsible approach to respect that opportunity. And I'm excited also to see how you all in this room and in Slovenia are embracing AI in the future. Thank you.
And now, please welcome the panelists for the roundtable, Synergizing Humans and Technology, the Power of AI for the Future of Innovation and Business. Mr. Igor Papic, Mr. Benjamin Jošar, Mr. Joško Mrnjak, Mr. Mitja Pirc. Special thanks to the partner of this roundtable, Google.
Thank you very much, Martin. That was a great presentation. I'm sure we're going to touch on some of the topics that you mentioned around responsibility and all the challenges we have had in our discussion. But Mr. Papic, if I may start with you, the first question would be, thank you. Everyone is talking about AI and its potential. What is your view as the Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation on AI and its current role and potential ahead? Of course, also with some focus on Slovenia, please.
Well, thank you very much first for inviting me to this event. It's a bit challenging for me to be in such an eminent company. Where shall I start when we start talking about artificial intelligence? I'm an engineer. Maybe that's an important issue. What is interesting for me today is that there was a kind of a joke that the number of experts in artificial intelligence is even the speed of raising the number of experts is even higher than the speed of the light. But if I look at all these discussions, these are primarily discussions at the level of social sciences, humanities, which is perfectly fine, of course. On the other side, let me tell the story when I first heard for the term artificial intelligence. I was probably visiting for the first time the Faculty of Electrical Engineering, and at that time I believe also of Computer Sciences, here in Ljubljana. I was at the Info Day, and of course I was walking around the building, and somewhere on the fourth or on the fifth floor, I saw on one of the doors the label, Lab of Artificial Intelligence. That was in first part of 80s. So for me, artificial intelligence is something really old from the technology part of view. But of course, we have to consider this from a completely different perspective. We know what is going on with processor power, computer power, so we can do much more operations. We saw a couple of years ago that even Deep Blue program is able to fight with chess champions and so on. So it's just a question of how many operations some certain systems are able to perform in very short period. Mm-hmm. But from the from the technology behind it, I'm still not impressed, because what is the autonomous car, for instance? You have to have a lot of sensors. You are observing certain things. You have certain control algorithms and so on and so on. Based on input data, you perform some calculations. At the end of the system, you make some decisions. That's quite trivial. And where is now the artificial intelligence? Where is the border between, let's say, conventional control system and something that is really intelligent?
If I may, thank you very much.
My question is for you back. What is actually the definition of artificial?
I think we're going to have more answers on that definition later on. Martin, also, you're probably going to give your definition. But if I may just give you a sub-question. Slovenia, you mentioned the 80s. About 40, 50 years ago, was in the forefront of development of AI, at least in a large part of Europe. What is your view on of Europe and also globally very renowned. We are kind of leaping behind on some of those indexes now, even though we have a great national strategy on artificial intelligence. I know it's not exactly your ministry, but still, we are putting AI in Slovenia in the front of most of our digital strategies. That is important for us. How would you comment on that? Also from the point of your ministry, science, education, research, AI is crucial, I would say, for Slovenia in its development.
I believe the main issue is related to implementation of this knowledge, because we know that some of our professors, Professor Ivan Bratko was one of the godfathers, he's still one of the godfathers of artificial intelligence worldwide. And of course, the question is always how successful we are as the country, as the society in this technology transfer. And that's the most important issue. We have to improve this technology transfer in everyday's life. And of course, I'm not worried about the knowledge that we have here in Slovenia. The question is how much of this knowledge is really actually used every day in the life. And by the way, just one example, I had this discussion with my colleague from Bologna, from Italy. We were discussing about the use of autonomous cars, and he said, can you imagine that you see these smart cars driving on Italian streets, roads, completely following all traffic rules? He said, that will be complete chaos. I said, yes, I understand that, I can imagine that, but that's not artificial intelligence. That's trivial control system. Artificial intelligence means that the car is observing what other crazy Italian drivers are. I'm sorry if there are some colleagues from Italy or some in any way related to Italy. You know, you have to observe what others are doing and you have to adapt to this. And I usually also say that I'm not so afraid of artificial intelligence. I'm much more afraid of natural stupidity, because artificial intelligence is learning from us. I'm not talking about smart guys. I'm talking about the issue how smart we are as the society.
Thank you very much. Martin, this is great. We're talking before. Artificial intelligence is learning from us, and who are we learning from? That's a philosophical question, right? Okay, Martin, I'm gonna continue on the other side with Joško, and then we'll come back to you again. Joško, the future of artificial intelligence is both exciting, uncertain, as we mentioned before. It's also fascinating what it can do for humanity. How do you see this topic? Could you share some enlightening examples from your work?
Thank you, Jaka. Hello all, my name is Joško and I've been with Google for a while from the region. Unlike dear Mr. Minister, who said that he's not impressed, I am impressed. I'm not an engineer by nature, so for me this is all magic. And I can give you different examples from different aspects. I can give you my personal example. We had a relatively similar event yesterday in Zagreb, where I was trying to prepare myself by going through BART. And it was mind-blowing, you know, to Jaka's point. I'm hosting a conference on AI, give me pros and cons, whoosh, in 5 seconds I would get quality stuff. For example, this is still not formally out yet, but it will be. It was announced in the next conference in San Francisco. Personal case, I'm clumsy in preparing presentations. It takes a while, it's time-consuming, I have to go through different various presentations, I have to go through my Google Docs for a narrative. Now I can type in the topic, I can ask the system to give me images, to put this in slides, and I can have this presentation in like seconds, which is mind-blowing for me from efficiency and a time-saving perspective. On different examples, AI's, I fully agree, is not necessarily a new thing. It has been here for a while. I think Martin can correct me. We have a company called AlphaFold who, for example, deconstructed 200 million proteins known to humanity years ago. This was 2018, I believe. And just as a reference, how powerful this technology is. For a regular science, it takes 5 years to deconstruct one protein. Now, this AI system has deconstructed 200 million proteins And this was given to humanity. And just as an example, at least million plus researchers are working based on these deconstructed proteins, and amazing things are coming out. New antibiotics can be produced. I heard that even they're producing enzymes that are eating plastic. So marvelous stuff that can happen. And that's maybe just one example. Our Sundar, our CEO, in his interview to CBS said, look, imagine if you would be a doctor and come to a triage in the morning, and the AI system would say, okay, there are 100 patients, we suggest you to take a look at these critical 5, and then it would be you to decide whether this is correct, yes or no, but at least it would be a strong suggestion, a time saving. And then usually I think this is already available. It's text-to-speech, where a lot of doctors are using a lot of time to put whatever they need in the system by typing in. This would become so easier. So I'm giving you practical examples how this is it's already making us, but it will make us further more efficient, more fast, more productive, and hopefully this will create added value, not just from a business perspective, but even to create leisure time for all of us.
Thank you very much. Mitya, we were challenged a little bit by Mr. Minister, saying we have AI strongly developed in many research and similar institutions in Slovenia. Dr. Bratko, as was mentioned, was one of the pioneers of AI in Europe, but we lack somehow this transition into applicativity or application in industry, in various sectors. And you also, when we talked a few days ago, you also mentioned that this is one of the biggest challenges, not only for Slovenia, but generally in Europe and worldwide probably. So the applicability of AI into different industries. And I know as Kearney, you are working on various sectors and projects. So how do you see this issue?
Thank you. So, I mean, I would maybe add to the discussion that we had. I agree that AI, it's an exciting technology, but it's like any other technology that came. You know, when we invented fire or electricity, we're equally puzzled, right? And we are also puzzled with this, particularly because it might seem that that it's something new, something that we don't understand. I share your opinion. I've been working in what's called AI today for a lot of years, right? So for me, it's a natural extension of what we are seeing. And I would just like to emphasize that AI is building on a number of other progresses that have been helped or that have been executed in the recent decades, right? The sheer fact that businesses are digitalized, that we have computers, the data is organized, right? If Google and others wouldn't have been working with data for the past decades, we wouldn't have AI in the form that we have, right? And this is very important to acknowledge, right? Obviously, the computing power bursted that into an overdrive, right? And the thing is that when we enter into AI in the broadest sense, we typically talk about the applications in a sense of how it can replace humans, not making PowerPoints or processing ads or creating something new. But we see a lot of applications in other parts of businesses. This is something that we also discuss. So, for instance, we already work with companies optimizing their inventories, right? So how to find better solutions, extracting insights from the perspective of knowing when and how you should manage your inventory. It's not, as nice as creating pictures of, cats or castles, etc. But, it brings a lot of business value to companies. We've already heard, I think, or maybe I just had the discussion, that there is, you've mentioned it, the progress in terms of product development. This is enormous. Impact in pharma industry. We see things speeding up like 100 or 1,000 times. We also see it being applied in FMCG industry as well. One of the most interesting examples that we've also seen was during this recent COVID era, or post-COVID era, where we had a lot of supply chain difficulties. And one of our clients, a global multinational, they actually asked us to help them develop a really advanced negotiation tool so that their category managers that were negotiating with suppliers, they had real-time insights what's going on in the world, because we had no idea what's going on with the electricity prices, coal prices, etc. And somebody would come and say, now this bottle of water is 20% more expensive, and you would know if this is true or not, right? And these kind of all sorts of exciting things are already deployed. And lastly, I think it was also mentioned earlier, it's helping us move faster in terms of code development, right? And this is a very important part. We work a lot with automotive industry in Europe, and automotive industry has one of the greatest challenges actually how to develop software faster, right? And AI can play a really interesting role here. So we are really interested in other parts of the business and finding areas where the biggest value is to the company.
Mitja, let me ask you a follow-up question. Large language models in AI in general, could significantly increase the productivity of white-collar workers, but there's also a lot of fear in a lot of sectors regarding job losses due to AI. Now, as a global consulting company working cross sectors, how do you see this potential threat on job losses due to the development of AI?
I mean, it's happening across a number of sectors, right? The question is it going to be something similar to the introduction of computers, right? As was mentioned earlier. It took us, a couple of decades to actually see the productivity of computers kicking in official statistics, right? I mean, people still, were shuffling papers, right? And even today, I was at the bank a couple of days ago, trying to get some loan reprogrammed. And the lady behind the counter, she was taking scans of my ID and processing everything manually. And we have the robotic processing automation technology available for like 5-10 years already, and it's still not being completely brought in. That's one perspective, and the second perspective is in a number of businesses. There are still a lot of processes which are regulatory required to be executed in a certain way, so we can't actually jump over that. And the second thing is we really need to build trust in AI, right? I mean, we've heard about hallucinations, etc., right? And the thing is that if we are not really certain that this functions, it's going to be really hard.
Thank you, Mitja. Benjamin, I'm going to continue with you here. AI is definitely the biggest game changer in decades. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You can agree if it's the century or 50 years or 10 years, but it's a game changer, number one, at least at the moment. Financial responsibility. Financial sector is one of the most regulated sectors, across industries. And AI is becoming more and more an applicable tool. You use it all the time for your work as well. And at Triglav Skladi, Triglav Funds. So first of all, how does AI influence your business processes, for example, at Triglav? And the second one is responsibility for decisions. Because if you're going to produce me an investment plan using artificial intelligence, you know that I want to know that. Okay, so how do you, and who's going to be responsible for that? So how do you tackle those issues?
You're asking difficult questions.
I know. There's two questions. If you didn't remember, I'll repeat them again, okay?
Regarding the change and the transformation of the business models, an anecdote. When I was in the army, it was like 23 years ago, I was at the Institute of Stefan, kind of civil service, and there was this room for weak intelligence. I had no idea what this was, but nevertheless, if we take these 20 years plus into account, the development is enormous. And what does it mean for financial industry? I guess it means the same, or perhaps an additional layer because of this regulation, the fiduciary duties we do. It really means that we have to use it on various levels. We have to use it at the level of as a productivity enhancement. That we do it already, but that's not a competitive, sustainable advantage. Everybody will be doing it. It's kind of a hygiene as we use computers. Then the second one is how to implement AI a little bit more broadly, how to integrate it into business models, so to protect, produce, and come to better decisions. Come to better decisions where we invest. Come to better decisions what advice to give to our clients. And here starts this question, which we cannot really answer, is about what's AI and what's our personal liability or responsibility, because at the end of the day we are ultimately responsible for what we do. So I would speculate, because there is no answer. Definitely the institutions and people working in the institutions, in the financial institution, on the level of management, will be ultimately responsible. And transparency, I guess, is one crucial element of implementation of AI, so that all the stakeholders know where we use it, why we use it, and what was product of artificial intelligence, and what was product of the experts working in the company. But we all will have to be used to integrate and use AI in our routines, our working routines, regardless of where we are in the company. Otherwise, we'll be replaced. But we are not afraid to be replaced by at least I'm not, by artificial intelligence, but by someone. If I'm not using artificial intelligence in my daily work, I will be definitely replaced by a guy who is using it.
Thank you very much. And just on the responsibility and knowing who is behind a decision, you are aware that the European Union is legislating in this field. It's called the AI Act, currently in the trialogue. We're expecting it to be adopted by the end of this year. There's different speculations whether there's going to be a 6-month transition period, which is very short for EU, but there's an urge to do this, or 12 months or even 18 months like GDPR. However, B2C relations will have to be labeled as generated by artificial intelligence. If I'm going to read an article somewhere on the web, it's going to have to say created by artificial intelligence or a robot. Similarly in financial industry. So this will be something that's going to be also regulated. Just to add to your answer regarding responsibility.
May I take 30 seconds to elaborate on that? Yes, of course, and it should be said and conveyed that it was created by artificial intelligence. But if I am a customer, I would actually be afraid to be advised by somebody who is not using artificial intelligence. So what we're going to transform into is actually that we are capable, and perhaps more capable than our competition, to integrate artificial intelligence into our processes.
Thank you, Martin. You're the most competent person here, definitely, to talk about technology of AI and different aspects. We heard a lot from your presentation already. And there was this philosophical question. If AI learns from big data, which humans created, each human learned from big data that previous generations created. So it's an on-learning process, which is a very philosophical dilemma. But that was not the main additional question I wanted to ask you, or the first question. I'd like to ask you really, in simple terms, how will artificial intelligence change the world we live in, your personal beliefs, and how to find a balance between emotional and artificial intelligence? Your opinion on that?
Well, that's also a very difficult question. So I think one part in terms of how it really will change our daily lives is that things that we currently deem impossible to do just because they're too expensive or too much effort will become possible, and this will, I think, in many areas really lift the quality of life for every person. And I'm sure we're going to touch on kind of the topic of education, for example, also. And I think that's something that's dear to my heart. When I think about education today, that's often, at least the way I perceived it and I see it with my children, is that it's still frontal. There's a teacher in front and a class of maybe 20, 30 students. But at the same time, there are studies that show that if a student has one-on-one tutoring, their quality of education goes up by 30 percentage points. And that's significant, but that's obviously not possible today, that we give every single student, every single kid in the world a one-on-one tutoring in the traditional sense that we have today. But if we think forward a couple of years, I think with AI that will be a reality, and can be a reality. And it doesn't mean that this AI tutor, for example, will give the children all the answers and they will not learn critical thinking, but it will rather mean that they have that same experience as if they had a human tutor that would give them that experience and give them that better education, have them learn that critical thinking and topics and knowledge. And I think that will be immensely beneficial, and that's just one example how an area where it's currently basically not cost effective or not possible to have this kind of support for us, which AI will make possible.
Thank you very much. And I was always curious, and this was one of the questions at the last event we had on AI here at AmCham. Can AI truly understand and interpret a children's fairy tale?
As an engineer right now, I would say that the technology is not there that we can really truly call it understanding. In many ways, actually, the underlying processes for this technology are very, very simple. A large language model at the basis really functions in a form that you probably are all very familiar with. When you're typing a message on your smartphone, and you have these little auto suggestions of which word can come next in your message, that's exactly at the basis what a large language model does today. That's the underlying mechanism. And it is truly fascinating to me how basically through the scale of more data, more computation, really these enormous models, from this very simple mechanism of predicting the next word, this property emerges of producing coherent text, producing answers that are factually correct, that really help a user understand a topic. But if I then really look at the process behind it, I would not call that understanding. But maybe then again, we come into the philosophical realm of what does it truly mean, understanding? Maybe are we as humans not only kind of thinking step by step and doing one word at a time in our heads? Is that what understanding truly is? And for that, unfortunately, I don't really have an answer.
Thank you, Martin. Mr. Papic, Mr. Minister, I mentioned a little bit earlier, EU is playing or trying to play a global regulator in lots of digital fields, which are also associated with innovation, science. We have many examples in the so-called European Digital Decade, and AI is just one of them. So the proposal of the AI Act is the most comprehensive piece of legislation ever created so far. And, you know, I would like you to comment a little bit on this position we have in Europe, and especially maybe understanding that cooperation must be achieved also outside of the European Union. We cannot regulate artificial intelligence, just like we can't do that with privacy within our fortress Europe. It's something we need to do transatlantic, it's something we need to do internationally. So just a brief comment on this aspiration we have to be the global regulator for the digital agenda, science, privacy, AI, everything. Mr. Minister.
Thank you very much for this question. First, I would like to point out we have special Ministry of Digital Transformation. They are, of course, responsible for broad implementation of these technologies. And it's interesting position. I talked to Madam Minister Emilia Stojmenova-Duh many times on that issue. First question is, what is the position of Slovenia on these things, you know? Okay, one is technology, the other issues are legal things, business models, potential misuse of technology, and so on. It's interesting that we have first to specify what is the position of a certain country. Because, as I said, we talk about technology, we talk about social sciences, humanities, safety issues, and things like that. And I think the main reason why we are trying to introduce some kind of regulation is the potential misuse of this technology. You know, of course, these things are powerful, that these are excellent tools, but we already know for a certain number of cases You probably know for the case of Cambridge Analytica, how you can influence the elections in certain countries and so on. So out of this threat, we have to probably set certain rules. Mm-hmm. And of course, we will never, try to limit the use of artificial intelligence. But you mentioned already today, maybe we will have to mention explicitly this product, this document was made by use of artificial intelligence. I learned that in Italy, they already introduced the requirement if somebody is using these tools that you should get the list of reference, which documents were used to create certain short report. That are very important issues. So we just have to create certain number of rules to reduce the possibility of misuse of this technology. For instance, we also heard that somebody said, let's ban the use of artificial intelligence in the field of education. That's somehow stupid. Why? For instance, why don't we use cars? Why don't we prohibit the use of cars? We know car can be very dangerous. You can lose your life. So we have to create a certain number of rules. People should follow these rules, and of course there will still be certain level of risk, but we need some rules that we prevent this potential.
Thank you very much. And this is where the industry, the major players, and European Union, national states agree. I mean, regulation is needed. It's not like we don't want regulation, the businesses don't want regulation. They actually wanted a transparent, smart, progressive legislation that tackles all of those issues: human rights, misinformation, fake news, everything, the dangers. So that is, I would say, on both sides of the aisle, this is a common understanding. But you mentioned something that I must ask you as the Minister of Higher Education. I myself also teach at two higher schools, Visoka Škola here in Slovenia, and I had a recent dilemma, and I told you about that dilemma. My students produce homework with, well, it was ChatGPT, now probably it's going to be also BART. So, and they turn it into, and also the exams. And what kind of grade can I give them? Who should sign that? Should I give them a 6, an 8, or a 10? Because answers are perfect. They just didn't write them.
Right, we had short discussion before this roundtable on that subject. My answer was very clear. Of course, this is a new challenge for teachers. Mm-hmm. So you are the one who should be able to first evaluate the work. If you follow the progress of your students, you probably know what are the capabilities of your students. And if you come across with a perfect work or something that is simply too good, there are other measures how to check what is the real knowledge of your students. I would say there are two aspects of this use. One is, of course, that students are using artificial intelligence. They are creating certain reports. The question is what they learned out of doing this. Are they just creating this report? They don't know what really says or what is the message of the report, or they are using artificial intelligence as the part of learning process. And that's the job of the teacher. And
that is very important. So AI is part of the learning process, absolutely. But this is a disclaimer, you said that your exams now are only oral. Mine are with a piece of paper and a pencil. Okay.
I mentioned very shortly, the best way to check is oral exam. You can ask your students 2 questions and you will see how much was created by himself, by that students, and what was created by some.
And I admire it as a minister.
Algorithms.
I admire you as a minister. You still have time for oral exams at the university. Great job. Joško, 2 follow-up questions. First of all, we talked about regulation. And when we were preparing for the roundtable, I mean, we said we're going to touch this base also. I mentioned smart regulation. I mentioned the European Union's global regulatory framework. But I would really like to hear from your point of view, what kind of regulation which will benefit both the users, public sector, and of course the industry and the development. What's your comment on that?
Thank you, Jaka. I'll just add on what the distinguished Mr. Papic is saying. And by the way, I fully agree. We have this saying at Google that says, artificial intelligence is way too important not to be regulated, but as important to be regulated well, which is exactly to what Minister has said, that we have to approach it very smartly, and it has to be done in a way that it enables technology to evolve in the best possible manner for society, yet that we reduce any potential way of misconduct, creating harm, malicious stuff like that. So meanwhile, while this is still not formally available, at least as a global regulatory framework, what we have done meanwhile, and this has been going on for years, not that we would like to imply this on regulators who will eventually bring this up, because it's a vast majority of different aspects that have to be involved, because this will involve the entire humanity, not just politics, tech companies, but scientists, humanitarians. Everybody has to be around it in order to come up with the best solution. So what we're doing meanwhile, in creation of technology for the moment, without, I would say, a formal global regulatory environment, we're using AI principles, which were announced years ago, 5-6 years ago. There are 7 of them. I can just briefly name some of them, which is how we develop them and how we believe they should be developed. So they have to be socially beneficial. They have to be done at scale in different categories of business and life where they can really make a change. Healthcare, environment, transportation, energy, entertainment, just an example. Then the second one is to avoid potentially any bias, meaning bias on gender, on sex, political beliefs, age, you name it. Later on, these tools are built for safety. Most importantly, in my humble view, is that it has to be run and accountable to humans, that we are the ones in control. I think somebody mentioned it, that this is not overrun by the machines, that we are in the driving seat saying, yes, this is how it should be done. And of course, on this path, there are things called hallucinations where we try to figure out how this works, but it has to be done in a safe environment. So this is the roughly how we're thinking about it today, because before this comes in, and we're very supportive of the overall regulation, because it will just help the humanity, and it will create the environment not just for tech companies, but for the usage and the rules of the engagement and the game for everyone.
Do you think that if AI Act lands in a, let's say, smart, applicable way, like in a way GDPR to a certain extent did, and it became to a certain extent a global standard,
Yep.
Do you think we have a chance, if we're smart now, in the last laps we're running regarding the trialogue, to actually have an AI Act that could, be global?
I hope so. I hope so, and I'm rooting for it very much. I think I heard it on the news 10 days ago. There was a meeting in Washington, D.C., where American regulators invited all big CEOs of the big tech companies for a discussion about regulation. So these things are ongoing both in the States or in EU. We're very much supportive of it, and I'm hoping that the sooner we have it, the better off we'll be in development of these tools.
Thank you very much. Mika, I'll come back to a question we kind of touched a little bit in the beginning. Some predict, I mentioned it a few times, that many jobs will be lost to the AI, but the better word than lost is probably replaced. And in order to replace them on a personal level or on a structural level, industrial level, new skills, education, training must be invested. How do you see this issue? What would you recommend to your clients if they would ask you this same question?
I mean, the reality currently is that the job markets are hot. People are struggling finding employees, and the question of actually optimizing the productivity using all sorts of technology. This has been around forever, right? It's not like the first time we're trying to do that, right? but we stumble upon a number of different things which prohibit companies to actually move forward, right? The first one is actually picking up what area should we actually focus on, right? This is something I talked earlier. Should we just focus on replacing some paper shuffling, or should we focus on improving things in the manufacturing? The second big problem, which is existing in a number of companies, is that data is not structured in the right way, right? Googles of the world, etc., can do their job because data is well prepared and well organized, etc. But in a number of companies, you still have data lying around in different Excel sheets or Words, etc. Right? And then we come to another kind of a challenge, that business processes are not aligned, right? People kind of improvise and things happen. And if you would like AI to be introduced, you need to solve a number of really fundamental problems, right? That businesses, even despite the fact that digitalization is happening over the course of the last couple of decades, still haven't solved completely. And ultimately, we come to the question that I've already mentioned earlier: trust. If I'm going to replace an AI, if I'm going to replace a person with an AI, do I trust that it's going to be the same type of output or quality job, right? And let me just conclude. We started talking about AI and topics that we know these technologies for decades. AI actually emerged as a concept in 1956, right? And then it was dead for decades because the computing power wasn't there, right? But the thing is that already in the 70s, computers were better in diagnosing diseases than doctors, right? And 40 years later, we still prefer a doctor to diagnose us instead of a computer, right? And this is something that we might see change with the new generation, right? Because new generation might be more adept to talking to a chatbot, to a computer, than to a human being, right? We see these trends happening with younger generations, and it might happen over the course of the years. And this is, but if we go back, companies have other fundamental problems of not being able to introduce AI because data, processes, etc.
Exactly, and there's a lot of legal issues also in various industries.
As well.
In journalism, we read yesterday or today in Delo, is the main daily we have here in Ljubljana. There's a bunch of writers going after open AI and ChatGPT, New York Times, etc. I mean, those are solvable issues, but there are issues in various industries, for example, copyrights. But I'm sure copyrights and those issues will be eventually resolved in one way or the other. If I may, Benjamin, continue with you, and when we prepared for this roundtable, we touched the competitive advantages within the financial sector. So you mentioned, all the players in financial sector can use artificial intelligence, or not only chatbots, but all sorts of applications. But the ones which will be able to train their AI model in the best possible way to serve their clients will be the winners in the financial sector. Are you working on that?
Yeah, we are experimenting on that. Well, it would be a long stretch if I said that we actually have something which we could call our model. But what we believe is that when we jump over this first hurdle, to use it as a productivity tool, there's the second one, how to use ChatGPT and BART for decision-making purposes, and that's another level of complexity. Of course, one part will be data. If we have access to superior data and we can train the model on the data, which is proprietary, the data, I think, or the combination of data, then we may talk about sustainable advantage, at least for a certain period of time. I believe we're going to go into that direction. That we are going to change a little bit our focus. What we do, we have to build on the competencies how to use, how to train the models, and to work with data much more than we do it now. But ultimately, as we said before, the decision or the responsibility would be on us. And I doubt that we would be able to call up Google and say, hey, Google, we made the wrong choice. It's your responsibility. No, it's not. It's a tool. And yes, the next level in the financial industry will be this proprietary use, or models of use, how we use it, how we gather data, how we combine the data, how we actually able to train the models, and the prompts we are using with prompt engineering, that we have this competitive advantage. It's not using it anymore, but to be better at using it.
Thank you very much. Martin, could you comment on the question and the answer that we heard from Benjamin as a director of a financial institution, now from the technological point of view? Basically the same question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we heard, I think, is exactly the direction that we're also seeing, that having specific domain-specific data will be even more a competitive advantage if you're able to train your own models on these, and because it will streamline basically the knowledge that you have in your data and make it more accessible to your employees in your processes and so on. And I think from a technical point of view, the process of training these models will get simpler over time. We're already seeing this today, where you maybe need a team of ML engineers even a year ago, is now something that you can potentially access behind an API and train your first version of a model. There's still expertise required to prepare the data in the right format, but even that, I think, will get simpler over time. And in general, a lot of the base models that we have so far that are underlying BARD and underlying ChatGPT, they will become a commodity, and in general, the direction, I think, will very much be going towards specialized models, specialized training, and that process itself will also become simpler.
Thank you, Martin. Yes, please.
There is one interesting aspect coming up in the financial industry, especially investment management. We are all now using theories from the 60s or even from the 50s. And it would be, there is no answer yet, but it would be nice to see how these theoretical foundations of finance, I guess, will be changing because of use of artificial intelligence. Because we cannot really make rational and good investment decisions in the area of artificial intelligence by using theoretical models from the 60s.
Thank you so much. Anybody else care to comment on that? Minister Papic, if I may continue then with you. There's a question we can never avoid when we have somebody from the educational sector, especially a minister, even though you're for higher education, but still this is an important issue in the world of digitalization and so-called digital skills. And we can all agree probably that without digital skills, I mean, everything we're talking about makes no sense. And we've been urging, or we've been talking, and also with your colleague minister on this issue, on when and how to introduce proper education to children, at which stage, at which level, in which form, obligatory, in a column or over many subjects. What's your vertical or horizontally, what's your point? What's your point of view on this issue?
First, it's not only the question of digital skills of our children. I think it's even bigger issue are digital skills of our teachers. Cannot teach children some new things, new technologies, if you are not familiar with these technologies. And that's even bigger challenge, I would say.
Universities, which you're responsible for, teach teachers. Then teachers teach children. So probably we need to start at your level, but then that's the right question for you.
Yeah, the development of these technologies is so fast that it's even at the university we say if you don't follow what is going on in the real world, students will start laughing you if you use some old technologies during the educational process. Absolutely, but it takes time. I think for those that are already there in classes, they have to teach as well in different ways these new skills. Absolutely, it's crucial. From my point of view, it's important that we are not afraid of that we don't think about any kind of limitations on use of these technologies. I mentioned before, I remember I was probably in the first, second grade of elementary school when we got first electronic calculators. We had probably the same discussions. Are we allowed to use these small devices or not? But it's trivial today. And, even now if you talk about artificial intelligence, what is the fundamental precondition for the use of artificial intelligence? Computer. So with the introduction of computers, all these algorithms that are running on computers are now available. But absolutely, it's a very important subject. You are right. I'm not responsible anymore for the elementary schools, secondary schools. I can tell you that at the level of universities, we introduced last year a large project, demo project, pilot project for all our public universities. So we call them to start thinking about the reform of higher educational system in terms of not only digital but also green transformation. So they will have now 3 year time period for analyzing existing study programs, and of course we have to modernize also our study programs, not only our teachers, and of course at the end stage also our students.
Thank you very much, and we're going to wrap up our roundtable with one question, which will be the same for everybody, and we asked the same question at the last event we had on AI. But before I ask that question, is there any question or comment from anybody here for our panelists? Maybe a thought? We have a few minutes for that before we go to the last question. Everybody's hungry. So let's wrap it up. So the last question we asked the last time is, and I'm going to start with you, Joshka. It's your kid asks you the question, Dad, what should I study in the era of artificial intelligence? Which professions, Dad, are still perspective? What do you answer to your children?
You would not believe, Jaka, I had this discussion with my daughter, who is 14. She finished elementary school, and now she starts her secondary school. And she was very passionate about gymnasium for some reasons, etc., etc. And we were discussing, should she be a business developer or a doctor? And just by listening to her, how passionately talks about different things, I didn't actually say this bluntly to her at the time, but I did say it later. I was thinking, I love you so much, but not so relevant at this stage. You know why? You have to put yourself in the most cool, competitive, smart kid surrounding. And eventually, throughout your life, you will learn so many different things on the way that what is your formal choice now will not necessarily be your end game by the end of your learning path. So my feeling is that in the coming years, we will change profession, we will change skill set. I started as a boy from communism with 2 TV stations, 1 cantor at 7:15. I have become country director for a technological company that did not exist 25 years ago, and we're talking about artificial intelligence in one lifetime. So to tell my kid what I just say, stay open-minded, learn, and enjoy the ride.
Thank you, great answer. Mitja, what would you say?
I agree. It's, I mean, in our lifetimes, things have changed so much. I mean, I look at my mom. I mean, she was growing up in a small village that didn't have TV, electricity, these kind of things, and she's now on a smartphone, and she still has, some years left to develop further. What our children are going to see, I'm having similar discussions as well. What our children are going to see is going to be, most probably mind-blowing, right? But the knowledge which actually, in my opinion, persists throughout time are these kind of really basic things. Understanding history, understanding basic technology, learning languages. These kind of things are still gonna, remain. Understanding, as you've mentioned, how things work mechanically, right? Or what does physics, mean? Or understanding. Geography, etc. These are kind of the things. I see very frequently that we see, you can study digital marketing at the university. Digital marketing is important. Now, maybe in 10 years, it's going to be something, completely different. So really basic stuff, this is what I would go for, but, pick whatever you want to. If you want to be a doctor, be a doctor. If you want to be a translator,
of course. Well, that's a fair answer. Yeah. Benjamin, in a few sentences.
Well, in one sentence, I have no idea, but on a more serious note, actually, I think you cannot really miss, because if you studied anything and perhaps combine something with social and hard sciences, I think it's a great start. Because what matters is diversity, and it's really hard now to pick a study which will prepare us or the children for the future. I think the broader the thinking is, the more broader knowledge we'll have, the more capable we'll be and more equipped to live in the AI world.
Thank you so much, Mr. Minister. As a dad, not as a minister, how would you answer that?
Well, when I started my career, I was, of course, an orthodox engineer. Now I'm an unconventional engineer. And what I learned through many large demonstration projects, closer than we are to some kind of final products or final services, more different sciences we have to involve in the process. I'm pretty much in favor of so-called Society 5.0. What does this mean? That we have to work together. Doesn't matter. On one side, we have natural sciences and technology. On the other side, social sciences and humanities. The point is that we work together. We should not be trying to create Superman guys, like in one person, somebody with good knowledge of natural sciences and social science. No, we have to learn how to work together in teams. An interdisciplinary approach is the right one. Of course, I learned in many cases that technology is not the most challenging part of this development. In many cases, we develop perfect products, but at the end of the day, either there was no business models, there were some legal problems, or there was simply not people interested in using this technology. So we have to work together, and young people should not worry about anything good or wrong professions. Everything is good. And we all have to learn how to use these new technologies, not only artificial technologies, artificial intelligence, but also other more hardware technologies like quantum technologies. And of course, I'm a power engineer. I'm still dreaming about fusion, about the production of energy out of with the fusion reaction that we have on the sun.
Thank you so very much. And last but not least, Martin, to wrap it up with your thought.
Right, yeah, so, I mean, maybe I'm biased. I would obviously say building these systems as an engineer, as a scientist, as a computer scientist seems like a safe bet for at least for the next decade or so. But on the other hand, we talked about jobs being potentially replaced. One way to think about it is also that jobs are actually being transformed, right? We're raising things to a higher abstraction layer. And that doesn't mean that the job completely goes away, right? I think doctors will continue to exist. So they might just have different tools and provide, in that way, better care for others. So in that sense, I think it's going to continue to be true that following someone's passion will be a good choice in choosing a career in education. And if my kids do that, then I'm very happy.
Thank you, Martin. I would tell my kids to become a dentist. That's always a safe choice. But I will wrap it up with this. Thank you so much to our panel. Thank you for this interesting debate. And I'll turn the word to Aisha. Thank you.
Well, let me also thank you all. A really interesting discussion. But I really would like also to thank to everyone. For the past 2 days, we were discussing big business, family businesses, investment, and of course, this panel that brought us into the now and the future. But one common denominator is opportunities. And I believe that by creating this, of course, opportunities without implementation and potential without implementation doesn't mean much. But before I really invite you to the lunch that you definitely deserved, I just need to say thank you, foremost to our partners and all the supporters, but also to my team. We are 9 of us, and they worked really, really hard to make this possible, and of course to all the friends and speakers that really brought so much inspiration into us. And now, lunch is waiting us.